Maybe 2-3 minutes. I think 3:05. I was thinking that that should
Oh,
be the
sure,
right
sure.
time.
Please, please.
Yeah. Some people may have got stuck in the traffic, Yeah. The usual excuse which you used to take. But they holding these seminars through a webcon like this is going to hit the business of all the hotels which used to be organizing these seminars.
True. True.
It's,
Although I
it's
think the
we can
participants would be
understand.
happy. It is.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
hitting our business badly. So from a chamber's perspective, we can understand.
Yeah. The chambers should be happy, because this is much much cheaper for you, more efficient.
It's cheaper, and then at the same time, there is no revenue at all.
There's no revenue. Yeah.
That's the challenge we're
But if you
facing.
improve the quality, then the revenue can also be there.
Yeah, we are trying. We're working on that, sir.
But ICC is very East-centric, from what I understand.
We are the only national chamber headquartered in Kolkata with
Okay.
offices all over India.
Okay.
Like
So
we have an
it's
office in Bombay,
Okay.
Delhi, Guwahati, Orissa, Jharkhand.
Okay. Very interesting. And currently, how many members?
We have around 1,200 all across India,
Okay. Very nice.
which are direct members of ICC. And we have affiliated bodies like Tea Association of India. So we are not considering their members. It is only direct members of ICC.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
Consumers Forum, that is also
Yeah,
affiliated to
Vivek
ICC.
and Neville. So after I give the welcome address, then I'll give it to Vivek for 5 minutes and then to Neville, and then we'll start with the question and answer as we decided. Is that right?
Yeah, we can give some opening remarks. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. So now, Nilanjan, you give me the signal whenever, I think
So we have 30 attendees right now.
all right.
I think so. It's 3:04. I think, sir, we can start now.
Okay. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are passing through unprecedented times. Now, who had imagined that because of the nature-induced intervention, the whole world, or almost the whole world, would take a total break and stop working for some time? People going to the office would stop going there. Perhaps they'll start working from home. Factories would stop working or go for a partial shutdown. Shops, markets, restaurants, hotels, airlines, and other establishments would stop working. Some of them would probably come to a complete stop. Naturally, when the entire economy comes to a stop, it will definitely take a substantial hit. India's GDP, which was around 6 to 7%, will be close to zero, or some people say even minus. A large number of working population would probably have lost their jobs. So for the government as well as the individuals, the preventing and tackling the disease had been the first priority number one. So we did manage to slow down the spread, definitely, but at a great cost, as it was achieved by shutting down the business and everybody staying at home. This, however, could not have been done forever. Slowly but steadily, the shutters are being opened now. Some of the establishments have started working, like some of the establishments in the east and some in the north. And probably most of the units have now started limping back. So, survival in the new circumstances shall have to be learned. Personal survival would first be achieved by observing personal discipline and taking personal precautions, safe distance, and whatever has been prescribed for each one of us. Next would be the business survival, which we would have to learn by innovations and use of technology. So, there we also need to go for cost cutting, and use of technology would be the new mantra. Government has come out with a 20 lakh crore package, but that is for the country to be self-reliant. How people like you and me can create the demand, and how do we deliver the products at the least possible price so that they are affordable for everyone? This is what we are going to be discussing with the two experts with us today. Revival of the economy has to be done by assisting small, medium, and the large enterprises so that you and me can go back to work. People can go back to the markets to buy, and the factories and offices would go back to the business of working and supplying the goods at prices which are affordable. Looking at a macro view, mining, steel, and power are the most affected sectors. Demand for steel has to be generated, and if that happens, cement will also improve, construction will start, demand for iron ore will also improve, and if all that happens, then the demand for power shall also improve. So we expect the two business leaders to tell us today, how do we reorient our business now that slowly and steadily the business will start opening up. We have with us the two business leaders here, Mr. Vivek Bhatia. He is the MD and CEO of ThyssenKrupp Industries. He has been the MD of this company since 2019 and also has been with the group for many, many years. Earlier, he was CEO Asia Pacific region at ThyssenKrupp, taking care of the group activities in Asia Pacific. Mr. Bhatia has worked with Boston Consulting Group as member of the leadership team. He has experience across mining, metals and minerals, processing, oil and gas, renewable energy, etc. The second speaker is Mr. Neville Dumasia. He is the Indian leader, advanced manufacturing, mobility, and infrastructure at Ernst & Young. Neville has years of experience in issues ranging from technology to improvement in performance, both required in large numbers to enable us to re-rail our business, which is the prime requirement as of today. So what I'll do is I will pass on the mantle to Vivek Bhatia so that he can give us a brief roundup, and then we will go on to Mr. Neville Dumasia. Vivek, over to you, please. You are mute.
Thank you, Mr. Arora, and thanks for the warm welcome and the introduction. And also thanks to ICC for this opportunity to really share my thoughts along with all of you. Definitely, I think we are in an unprecedented situation, and first and foremost, it is a human crisis. Uh, when when we were doing business in at the start of the year in January and February, it was virtually impossible to imagine that something like this could have emerged. And certainly, events like this are basically impossible to plan out, to anticipate from a business perspective. And all of us are now in a phase where we are trying to calibrate what does this mean in terms of business impact? What does this mean in terms of how we have to manage our people? And also, what can we do to mitigate and really emerge from this situation? I think definitely after 2 months of lockdown, and definitely in my case, a lot of introspection during those 2 months, and also intense discussions with colleagues across India, with various stakeholders across India, and including various friends and business partners across the world. I think the true magnitude of some of the challenges are emerging. So let me maybe categorize what some of those challenges are. Firstly, as we reopen, it is quite clear that this contagion, this pandemic, is has definitely not come to an end. And most certainly, at least in the Indian context, it is projected to peak somewhere around July, August, which means that we are looking at an environment where coronavirus will be with us till the end of the year and perhaps early part of next year as well. And there, I think that is only an optimistic estimate. The other part is we can very well expect that no clear cure in terms of vaccine or treatment is on the anvil over the short term. We are at least 12 months away from any kind of vaccine or meaningful treatment, which can get us help, which can help us get our arms around this situation. So we are going to look at a year of living with the pandemic, and that definitely has implications on the way staff will behave, the way businesses will behave. The second part is, I think, the whole process of lockdown has definitely had a huge impact on demand and also on supply chains. And Mr. Arora, you very rightly mentioned that the Indian GDP will take a hit. Almost all global economies are taking a hit. And indeed, the second big impact will be that many business entities and indeed some sectors will see a lot of firms being pushed to the edge of bankruptcy and some perhaps even falling over the edge. And therefore, the business landscape will also change dramatically as we go through this crisis over the next 12 months. Thirdly, I think consumer behavior is definitely changing, and already some of those changes are quite visible. The way consumption will happen, and even in a B2B context, the way businesses are responding and reacting to the crisis, I think leads to a very different situation vis-a-vis how we will conduct business, the kind of business opportunities we will see, and indeed the nature of the business opportunities. And lastly, I think what I would like to emphasize is that in this environment, uh, definitely for us, we are rethinking, the entire way we are wired up and trying to rewire ourselves for a new paradigm. It does mean that we have to reflect on how digitalization will play a role, both in our operations, but also how we are interacting with customers, what kind of services we are able to offer them, how we can, engage with them in a very different format, and also how we can create products and services which have a different value proposition than what we were earlier considering. And I think in all of these circumstances, if we take a step back, government has a tremendous role to play because businesses can only, react, manage, or drive change to a certain extent. but governments have to play an outsized role in driving economic growth, indeed, reviving it, if I would say so. And we are seeing unprecedented measures being taken across the world. I think Japan has come out with $1 trillion in terms of stimulus. The Indian government has really announced, size and scale of measures which we've never heard of before. So I think all of this, requires a strong intervention from the government. And there again, we remain closely engaged with them at multiple touch points to provide our inputs and to shape their reaction. Yeah. So with that, I'd like to just pause and perhaps
Thank
Neville
you.
would like to add
Thank
and share
you.
his.
Thank you, Vivek.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Arora.
Vivek. That's good as an opening remark. So we will now go on to Neville to have his first perception on the subject which we are going to be talking in due course. Over to you,
Thank
Neville.
you. Thank you, Mr. Arora. Thank you, Vivek. So let me start off. I'm going to take a couple of points which I find very, very bothersome. The first one is that, of course, it's unprecedented times. Of course, it's something that we've never encountered in our life. But the combination of factors that have come about, which is not just the COVID, but the other challenge that we're also facing around our security threat on our borders, what we are seeing in the non-banking finance companies or the banking environment, what's thereafter was happening in terms of mass exodus of migrant laborers from the urban to the rural cities. So we are being hit at the same time by a large number of very, very highly volatile variables. So to say it's an unprecedented time is something, it's also a privilege because you hopefully will only see this once in your lifetime and not the second time around. But it is truly unprecedented in that sense. The first concept that therefore this really brings to bear is the concept of globalization that we used to talk about a lot in the previous couple of years, saying everything, the whole world is global, the world is flat, there are books written on it, etc. And do we think now that globalization is now going to look at more localization? Is it going to be more nearshore? Is it going to be, will I be as a global company be comfortable having an extended supply chain right down to China or to India? Or will I want to do something which is probably closer to home? Will I look at my shared service centers closer to home? So from a distance where the whole world was looking like one flat surface, it's now probably increasingly going to become towards nationalization, protectionism, trade barriers, etc. So that's the first defining trend that's going to start for the next couple of years or couple of decades, perhaps. The second thing is about the new face of the consumer, and I think Vivek touched upon that. And truly, uh, I have never seen companies engage in B2B businesses. B2C I can still understand, but B2B businesses who are actually reimagining how they're going to be serving their customer. What is the need of the customer? How can I make sure that this customer gets what he needs with the least amount of clicks that is available, rather than having 15 clicks? There is actually studies and analytics which show which site is preferred or which place is preferred if you have lesser number of clicks for a customer. So what are their needs? What will they really spend on the more lavish environment, or will they be just trying to conserve cash? What is going to be the new face of the consumer is the second defining trend that's coming. The third trend which I worry about is on the banking system, and I keep referring to the banking and the NBFC system as well, because there is quite clearly a lot of stress in this system. Uh, the Reserve Bank of India has been trying to do their level best in reducing rates, trying to make sure that there is sufficient liquidity. But instead of banks actually lending more to customers, lending more to consumers, they are probably parking this money back with the Reserve Bank of India. And unless and until we actually have sufficient amount of flows, uh, I wonder, the big trend that I wonder is, will the banking system as we understand it today continue? Or will there be the cryptocurrencies age that will now start saying that, anyway, the banks aren't able to do much, so what should we really be thinking about? So the third trend is about the banking system. And the last thing is not a trend, but a little bit of optimism on my side, saying this is probably the one chance in a lifetime that we all have to reimagine the future. every single thing around us is changed or is changing or will change. It is going to happen at a pace that has never been seen before. It is going to happen in volumes which are so staggering that we will probably, hopefully, never see it again. But the potential for us to reimagine every single thing, it's basically saying that whoever wants an opportunity to become another Facebook, another Twitter, another whatever, the chance is now. Because you can actually do something which is truly, truly dramatic, truly, truly remarkable, truly, truly powerful. So those are some of my opening comments, and I'm very, very optimistic. I hope my country comes out of it better, stronger, more powerful, and we actually can take a shape stage on the global stage. So I'm really, really optimistic about that.
Yeah. So very well said, Neville. I agree with you that some of the major changes which are in the pipeline, they are going to affect our lives, especially the globalization. Ever since the political systems have been taking a hit, whether they were in US or somewhere in Europe, everybody is now probably trying to say that globalization is not the best thing which you would like to have. You would like to take care of your own country and be satisfied with whatever you have. And then, I also agree with you that this is not a calamity, whatever has happened. This could also be a opportunity for everyone. And what is required is that everybody has to reinvent and re-innovate your business so that you can make a new start. After all these situations have always brought out new leaders. Most of the companies, the original leaders will have to also refashion their business. And then once that happens, probably you will see that many new leaders coming into the market. All right, so we with these opening remarks, we have a few set of questions, and I thought we what we could do is that we could discuss as a sort of a chat box, in respect of certain things, the current situation and its impact on the business, which I think we have already talked that we have all been affected by this. But the second very important point was that managing people, how leaders must behave in such critical situations. Now, that's something which I would like to know from you, business leaders, as to, because the the manpower, trying to take care of your people and to develop leaders in these new circumstances is something where our thinking has to go for some kind of an upgradation, and it has to adjust in relation to the situation which is now coming up. So, would you like to tell us, Vivek, your thoughts on this?
Definitely. Happy to share what we are doing and how I see it. I think there are two peculiar challenges at this point in time. One, uh, people are anxious, people are concerned, they're worried on several factors. So, one is definitely coronavirus and how they might be at risk, how their loved ones, their families might be at risk, and simply ensuring that they remain protected. And this is psychologically, I think, definitely a big fear playing on everybody's mind today. The second aspect is, also the economic environment. I'm sure everybody, every employee, every staff member is reading the kind of chaos and struggle various businesses are going through, and as a consequence, the implications that it will have on employment and their well-being, economic well-being going forward. So on the one hand, we have really a concerned workforce, and on the other side, leadership teams which are sort of cut off from all of these staff members who are anxious, right? We are not able to be in an office environment. All the traditional modes of engagement are off limits. So I think more than ever in this environment, there is a need for business leaders to step forward and really engage and communicate with their people. And the importance of this simple act cannot be underestimated. I think what is required is they re-articulate, where the business stands. They need to re-articulate uh, that people remain and are definitely the first and foremost priority. At least in my case, I have done that, and I think it is also important to articulate in this environment as we are opening up again. What are the measures? What are the SOPs? What are the efforts that are being put in to ensure, the well-being of the staff as they think about coming back into day-to-day operations? And this has to be communicated, and it also has to be visible. When people are rejoining their offices, are rejoining their factories. Otherwise, they will lose the trust, they will lose the confidence of their teams, and there is also a risk that they will, not find the kind of people they need at this point in time to step up, to own the challenge, and really work shoulder to shoulder to overcoming some of the complications that the current situation poses. So definitely, I think there's a huge implication. There's a huge need for leaders to really step up to the occasion at this point in time. Personally, I think I'm trying to do that as a CEO. We are going through a series of town halls with whatever digital platforms we have. And pretty much every other day, I'm on a call with at least 100 of our staff members. We have, in fact, around 800 plus people working remotely and from home. So I'm online communicating with them. I'm regularly checking in on the operations through CCTV and engaging with the teams which are on the front lines and operating our factories. And as a leadership team, I think every alternate day we sit down and we take a 360-degree view of our business to see what is happening, because it's such a fast and rapidly evolving situation. You need to constantly recalibrate how things stand and how we need to react and respond. So every alternate day, we take a full 360-degree view of the business, and first we check if everybody is safe, how is business doing, and where do we need to intervene within the next 24, 48 hours to take charge again. So I think we are in that dynamic environment, and this process will have to continue.
Absolutely. I think very well said. I think most important is the communication, the team entirely reaching out to the top man and the bottom man in the team so that, they feel reassured that there are people who are standing behind you in times of need and otherwise, and then the communication, as you said, it has to be on a daily affair at whatever level it is required, so that let them not feel that since we are not in the office, they are nobody bothers about it. It's a communication is very, very important part of the entire exercise. So Neville, what do you think about it?
I cannot agree more on the aspect of communication.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that Vivek spoke about in terms of town hall. The only one thing that I'd add is, in these times, my reading of people, and we're largely a people's business. We don't have any machines. We just have people across along with
Yeah.
us. Uh, the better part is to honestly assess and honestly communicate. Because what I worry about is sometimes we tend to sugarcoat things, saying that no, 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 we are going to be all fine and everything is going to be okay. But people generally like a lot more honest communication. They would prefer if you tell people as is, you tell us what's the status, what's really going to happen, so that anxiety levels reduce. The second portion is empathy or care. So communicate is one. The other one is empathy or care. When you are looking at redundancies within the organization, what is the most sensitive, most empathetic manner in which you could actually help your employee who's been with you for a long, long time, or maybe who's just recently joined? How do you make sure that even if there is a separation, they still think of your organization in the best possible terms? Because truly, this is a time when your brand and your credibility will get seriously eroded, will get seriously impacted unless you actually deal with people well, because it's only in tough times that people will realize what's really the strength of the leadership within their organization. And the third thing is about maintaining a sense of positivity, irrespective of the fact that whether, and it's easy to say to a person who's about to lose his job, it's not very pleasant to hear this, but positivity in their skill sets and understanding their attitudes and understanding their strengths and weaknesses, and how could they actually reach out and do something more beneficial for themselves, is a journey that organizations must undertake with their employees to make sure that they finally, when they do get into another organization, they go with a very, very positive mind frame of their past organization as well as for the future. So those are some thoughts from our side as well.
Now, arising out of this, there is a question which has been going up and down in my mobile. Now, this is in regard to the people who have gone away, let's say, is a part of the migrant labor who have gone away, and they are an important part of your working force, and you cannot do your job. They may not be your permanent employees, but they are your contractual employees, and they are a very important part of the total force. So if these people have gone away, how do we get them back? Because first of all, I'm sure that the important point is that they should feel reassured to come back. That's the most important point which you had said. The communication is what it is. But is there anything else we can do to bring those people who have, gone home to to get over this shutdown period? So how to get them back? Because without them, your full production cannot start, and you cannot recruit new people to, and train them over to take over the job. That's it. Vivek, would you like to answer that?
Yeah. So yeah, we have four different kinds of groups, I would say. One is, of course, as you said, people working at construction sites, migrant labor primarily. We also operate a variety of plants. So we have around close to 2,500 people in operations right now. And many of those sites actually continue to work throughout the lockdown because we are supporting certain emergency services. Then we have manufacturing, and then, of course, we have the technical staff, right? So the high-end engineering groups, which are also working on projects abroad. So I think, as you very rightly said, there are two parts where we see this hitting us the most. One is on the manufacturing side, and the other is on the construction side. The manufacturing side was relatively easier because we have a much more intimate relationship with them. We've worked closely with our staff over now several years. Some have been working with us for decades. So I think there it was rather a question of giving them assurance that, look, if you come back to the factory, you will have a safe and secure environment, that we will, make sure that we are, with you right from the time you step out of the home till we get you back safely. And also reassuring people that, when they're in a multi-people environment in a factory, that they are not being exposed unduly to a variety of risks. So there, I think, and interestingly, it's not just the individual. Many a times people said, I'm willing to come, but my families are not agreeing to let me come. Right. So you also have to give that psychological assurance to their families because they might have old parents, they might have young children. They're concerned that if they come back with a, infection, then the whole family is in trouble.
Yeah.
So I think there it was really emphasizing and having a very stringent set of SOPs and operating procedures, which allow us to, ensure that we are tracking and systematically ensuring that the risk is minimized, and in case somebody is determined to be COVID positive, that we are able to move very, very quickly and prevent a broader fallout as a result of that. So that was, I think, really demonstrating, as I was saying earlier, demonstrating through your actions that you are really well prepared to deliver. On the other part, which is migrant labor, I think the situation is a bit more complicated
Yeah.
Uh, we are still in the middle of the migration. Many people, as things have eased up, in fact, it has only accelerated. People are looking for trains. People are even booking air flights, to find some way and means of getting back home. And there, our best guess is, we won't see a reverse migration till maybe July end or early August, because most of the people who are going back will be in quarantine for a couple of weeks. They would want to spend at least 3 to 4 weeks with family before they are even contemplating coming back. So then we are already 6 weeks, 6 to 8 weeks down the road. So that I think is really a big challenge. We are on our construction sites down to one-fourth of what we were before lockdown, and we are looking for local labor right now. That is the only thing we can do.
Yeah.
And I believe the government has a big role to play in encouraging these people, giving them the confidence that yes, uh, you will be well taken care of. And the industry also has to step up and demonstrate that they're willing to take care of them once they're back. So it will be a
Some,
combination of the
yeah,
two.
some steps have been taken by the government also because they have now started registering all the migrant laborers, and if that happens, that will probably give them some kind of a confidence that they have an identity which will be available to them, even if whether they are working here or there, and they will continue to get their, their rations and other things, whether they are in the village or they are working here. So that sort of an assurance will is the government is also trying, because they also are very sure that unless these people come back, the pace of the industrial construction will not be there. The buildings which are being constructed, the roads which are being made, and the factories, which are being operated, all these will not be able to work unless these people also come back. And that will come only by virtue of the assurance, which these people feel that all right, the trains have started working backwards also. Now they're working only in
Correct.
one direction. Once they start working
Correct.
backwards, then they will know that the free flow has started. All right, so now we will take a chance. So that's something, yeah,
A- Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely.
Just one point from my side,
Yes,
Mr. Arora,
please.
and so I think the one thing that the government can actually do to improve some sense of security is to actually demonstrate the strength of the health infrastructure that they can create. I mean, just now the problem is that with the experience that the migrant laborers have gone through, where they did not get food, where they did not get water, they did not get a transport back home, to actually expect that they will be able to come back in a hurry is probably difficult unless we can actually demonstrate saying, okay, it's now safe. Here is the health infrastructure. If something happens, if you're in this age bucket, nothing is going to happen to you. If you're in the slightly senior category, something you have to be more careful, etc., etc. So my sense, and I was reading one of the questions that was posed in the chat as well, saying that do you see chances of businesses shifting from rural to rural India from urban India? Actually, all businesses are in rural India. It's just that the head offices are sitting in the urban cities. Almost all businesses are there. And the challenge is now that almost all the rural areas where these migrant laborers have gone back is where the COVID outbreaks and the hotspots are now going to start emerging, because while there has been a cleansing of, so to speak, of the migrant laborer from the more larger cities, they've actually now moved into the smaller locations, and there the possibility of a large scale breakout of COVID is extremely high. So we'll have to just wait and watch maybe over the next 3 months, 6 months, as Vivek was also pointing out, because it's not something that is just going to flatline. It's going to be a seesaw. It'll keep going up and down. But this is the dual challenge that is also arising now.
Yeah, we will have to see how the disease behaves in due course of time, and that will probably determine their future course of action. Yes. All right. So now, the very important role in which we have said that the business will have to be, there'll be have to be innovations, and there will have to be a new way of conducting the business. Now, digitization and the other mechanizations, that's something which, if we could briefly touch upon this, because this is has probably already started effect coming into our operations already. because people, when they are sitting at home, they have not been sitting idle. They have been taking care of their business by using their laptops and other innovations which they have, and they have been able to keep in touch with all their employees, their associates, and their friends and other people. So how is this digitization going to be affecting? It is going to be probably require less of traveling for the people, more of working from a single location. So maybe I'll first go to Neville, because he, as a consultant, I think he should be able to better lay out this roadmap. Yeah.
Not necessarily, sir.
All right.
but
So,
but let me
uh,
try. Okay, let me try. But
okay.
yes, you're right. So digitization is actually the buzzword right now, and has really speaking been there for a while. And when we talk about digitization, we are talking about a much larger thing. So one is work from home, but the other thing is to actually look at the entire value chain, the entire manufacturing, the sourcing, and thereafter the distribution. If you just break these three buckets down, you will see that almost in each and every one of these, across sectors and across industries, companies are moving very, very rapidly towards digitization. So if you take coal, because I see a lot of the questions that are being posed are around the coal industry,
Cool. Yeah.
uh, coal mining is probably one of the areas where there is going to be a significant amount of digitization that takes place. The entire concept of a digital mine, how do you actually do sensorization? Where do you put sensors? How do you extract the coal? What's the most optimal way? All of this can be done by machines very, very rapidly today. Some part of it is still under testing, but a large amount of it is already available for companies to deploy. And several parts of the world are actually doing work on this digital mining space. So I see almost sector by sector, and you can go to automobile, and there's a concept of saying, will there really be a dealer now? Will you really need to go to a dealer workshop or a shop? Will it not be more phygital, which is a combination of physical as well as digital, where essentially models that are coming around are saying that why can't I show you how the car looks like sitting in the comfort of your home in a 3D visualization mode? Or if you're really so keen about driving a car, I will connect you to 5 other people in your vicinity who own a similar car, and they will just come along with their car and show it to you. So do I need a dealer at all? How does that pan out? Real estate. If it's a residential property or a commercial property, why do I need to come to the office at all? Why can't I just show you the view of the Arabian Sea or the view of the whatever sea that you're going to get from whichever floor by just digitally enhancing all of that for you? So businesses are actually now looking at doing digitalization as a new way of business, addressing your customer, addressing your suppliers. Does my supplier need to come and have lengthy, long discussions with me? Or can I just price discovery over e-commerce platforms in the fastest possible manner? Uh, the fear with all of this is we are probably losing touch with our human side. We're probably becoming more and more. We might still be just seeing each other on the video screens rather than catching up face to face. But digitalization is this. This is what's actually happening. The computerization that age is gone. The digitalization age is really about all of these things that are happening.
Thank you.
Vivek,
Thank you. In regard to coal, I will make I'm a coal mining person, so I will know about it. The only thing is that today the aim of the government is to create employment in the mining sector. And I do not think that they are looking at a mechanization of that kind where everything would be controlled by the electronics only. Because let's accept that unless they create employment, the country is not going to be happy. So we definitely would like to increase our coal production. We would like to take care of the mechanization, but to the extent that the involvement of the people should not come down. So that's what the primary requirement of the government is. But yes, coming back to the digitization, would you like to comment in your industry, whatever you are doing? Yeah. your your this thing
Yeah,
your
I think yeah, you said it in a very interesting way that there's India also has a challenge of employment,
yeah
which complicates the degree to which we will go towards digitalization. But I think I tend to agree with Neville that in a B2B environment, especially. This crisis has really forced us to wake up to the kind of potential that exists. To put it very simply, over these last 2 months, we have, I was positively surprised how quickly we moved and developed technical trainings in collaboration with our experts from Germany. And so far, till yesterday, we have covered almost 2,000 clients, 2,000 people on various technical sessions. And that I think is something we would have never done otherwise if we were not in this kind of a situation. But imagine, I think, the kind of reach and depth you can get through this process. Second, I think it has really forced us to rethink, why we were using paper in so many areas. So we've stopped giving hard copies to our supply chain. Everything is now on a digital server. They're able to download from there. We have, digitalized many of our internal processes, and there I think I must compliment our IT group. They were very agile and productive during this phase. But we have digitalized our internal processing, so all kinds of approval notes and documents now. That whole process got accelerated, and also, communication. So, the very fact that we are able to have a very interesting conversation like this on a format that is entirely digital and to engage and address questions being raised by a large number of participants, I think that is really indicative of the opportunity. So what I feel is this will lead the whole experience, and even going forward, I think has really woken up a lot of business leaders to the possibilities, even government, and definitely we will reap the benefits of this in the coming days in terms of speed and efficiencies that we will be able to generate. And the other part is, which Neville briefly touched upon as well, is when you think about products, the whole nature of discussion has become digitally enabled. So we are now looking at a discussion about 3D models more, talking about digital twins more, and also using that in a more collaborative way with our customers and stakeholders in the process.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
lots of changes.
Thank you. Yeah, digitalization is a great thing, and but one cyclone could knock off the entire system for about a week here in Calcutta. So you can't imagine how badly we were affected. Till this morning, I was twiddling my thumb whether I'll be able to participate in this discussion because the internet was off. So we tried our best, but suddenly decided to come back. It was a very surprise welcome. But for 1 week it was entirely out of action. So that's the way it is. But tell me now the next question, which is that what is our recommendation for other business leaders and MSMEs, specifically because they are a large number of, a lot of them are members of the Indian Chamber. So MSMEs, especially they also are finding it difficult to face up to the new challenges. They are the people who are now standing at the crux and trying to watch the situation as to how to deal. They haven't really as yet been able to go back to their offices, but if not today, tomorrow they will be able to reach there. So they'll also have to remodel their business, come up to with some strategy to take care of the business in the new situation. So we start with Vivek now, please.
Well, definitely, I think it's a very challenging environment, I would
Yeah,
like to say, because firstly, demand is uncertain. In some
yeah,
cases, it's really, shrunk. Second, I think people are looking at very difficult credit terms. So most customers, at least many of my customers, are it's become very difficult to get the cash out in this environment. Everybody has become stingy. And third, I think all your fixed costs are still there, right? So all of that hasn't gone away. I think it's really uh, it's only through conversations, because most MSMEs are connected with larger businesses. are part of certain clusters. And there, I think this is perhaps the best time or the right time, I would certainly say, to open up a dialogue with your main major customers and say, how are we getting out of this? How are we partnering each other? How are we supporting each other, to get out of this and survive and really continue to have a sustainable business going forward. Um, Second, I think what MSMEs need to be alert to is the changing landscape of global supply chains. Because there has been so much disruption, many large players are also looking at nearshoring, and that definitely is an opportunity. So I would tell any MSME CEO that this is perhaps the best time as ever to reach out to people who had not been, actively working with you, and really ask them, is there an opportunity? What can we do differently? And really to focus on capacity, because if today someone has people working in his factory and is able to get output, I think he is in a wonderful situation, because most the supply chain is down to 25% capacity, 30% capacity, and anybody who is working and is able to get production out, they will see the opportunity that perhaps even more business might come to them. So I think it has to be, they have to be on their feet. And lastly, I think the government has come out with a lot of measures to support, and they must view that very critically to see how much benefit they can extract from it, and also use that as a means. If they can bring some discounts to the table, then I think it will really put them in a very strong position to ride out of this crisis much stronger.
Thank you. Thank you, Vivek. Neville, coming just allied to this, I was thinking that don't you think the behavior of the people is now going to change? Like I have seen for the last 2 months, confined to my house, I have, probably I don't need so many shirts and pants for myself. I don't need to go out and eat in the restaurant like the way I was always thinking that maybe one of these days. And the life has become simple. The requirements have been cut down. So all this is not going to affect the FMCG industry, because these people were all depending on creating a demand by letting the people, इच्छाओं का हम लोग, in India we say इच्छाओं का दमन करना चाहिए, गीता में लिखा है. So this is what has learned. I mean, we have learned this lesson during the course of these 2 months. But if we do इच्छाओं का दमन, then what is the FMCG industry going to do? That depends on explorating or increasing your demands, for everyday demand. So how are we going to adjust to this new system, because ultimately the industry, the demand for these goods have also to be catered in the market, and all these millions of people are engaged in taking care of this kind of an industry, you know, this kind of a business.
Sure, that's a great question. So I'll tell you what I'm thinking. As a human being, we are creatures of habit. So if this lockdown continues for a long time, say 6 months, then I would agree with your thesis saying that yes, it is very, very likely that I'm going to stop buying some more shirts or trousers or suits or whatever else that's happening. Largely also because I suspect that there will be a bit of a cash flow issue. I don't know whether I should go to a mall. So there is that fear and apprehension cloud that is floating around in my head, as also the concern of whether I have a secure job and whether I'm going to be gainfully employed with sufficient money in my pocket. But imagine 6 months later, business starts changing. Things start changing again. Car companies are desperate to sell their cars. So they come back to you with major discounts. Bank financiers come back again with a hurry saying that, listen, you can't get a better deal than this because this is the most reasonable, the lowest price loan that you can actually ever get. I would tend to argue that most people would then start buying those things again. And FMCG companies, to your specific question, have a knack of making smaller packets out of a larger bottle, right? So if they have been selling large containers of Dove shampoo or whatever other shampoo you are selling, making miniature packs, getting those to be distributed within their supply chain, is probably how they will address the situation. Because if somebody is using something for the last several years, maybe they'll downgrade themselves for a month or two, but my sense is they will bounce back pretty quickly once they feel optimism. So the key question is really, when do we see the Indian consumer getting back to optimism levels? So do you see them coming back to optimism fast, or do you see them coming back after a while? If it's after a while, then yes, FMCGs, everybody will actually have a tough time. But in the meantime, I believe that this is the way the market should operate.
Probably you'll also have to do some kind of a cost cutting so that you can make it more affordable, your products, so that.
I'm actually, sir, in a sense, I keep looking back and saying that in India we've been masters of cost reduction for several years. So we've really cut this cost to such an extent. It's now a question of really rethinking and saying, can I, instead of cutting costs, can I really make my supply chain a lot more resilient? To what Vivek spoke about in the MSME sector, could I fortify the supply chain so even if something bad happens the next time around, these guys who are my suppliers, I will make sure that they're taken care of. They have sufficient liquidity, they have sufficient cash, access to funding. They are in a much better place to be able to serve us, because otherwise this supply chain is likely to be so badly distorted that it will become troublesome to get them back into the market.
Okay, now Nilanjan, how much time do we have? Nilanjan or Ankita, is anyone there? It's almost 4 o'clock. Anyway, there's a question for Neville. He says, beyond supply chain issues, what are the learnings from this calamity for businesses to become more resilient so that they face black swan events better? Black swan events will happen, that's sure. When, in what form is not known. So, what do you make?
I think
Sir, just to
liquidity.
interrupt you, sir, I think we can close in next 5-6 minutes.
5-6 minutes?
Yeah,
Okay.
because we
All
started
right.
a bit late, so it's almost 4 now.
Yeah.
So next 5-6 minutes we can close.
All right.
Okay,
Another
please
five.
carry on. Please carry on.
Okay. So, Neville,
Yeah.
would you like?
So I think two areas that I would really look at in addition to the supply chain. One is liquidity, and what's my access to the best possible funding at the lowest possible prices is one thing that I'd be constantly looking out for. The other thing that I would look out is on my people agenda. How much more robust is my spend on their training? How am I going to make sure that they are far more resilient, far more agile to adapt to any significant changes that come through? And the third thing will be, I'm sorry, again, coming back to the supply chain, but rooting down saying, where else should I start looking for in terms of new avenues of business? Why should I just be complacent with doing one single thing at one point in time? Why don't I just spread this around a little bit more? So those are three things that I see the most amount of stress in, liquidity being paramount. But these are the other areas that I would look at. And I suspect, very honestly, to be fair, with the customer part that I spoke about, with you constantly having to reimagine your customers' needs, I think companies used to believe that they have a customer, they have a client, and they can keep selling material to them or they can keep selling services to them. That's no longer going to be the case. You really need to keep on imagining and reimagining what your consumer wants and how is your product suited to address their requirements.
So, any closing remarks, Vivek?
Yeah, I think just one point I would like to bring about, and I was just going through many of the questions as well. I think definitely the government has to play a big role in helping us tide over this crisis. Industry on its own cannot manage it.
Yeah.
And perhaps one of the things the government can do is really come up with a plan for massive expenditure, perhaps focused on the infrastructure space. Why do I say infrastructure? Because when you look at various sectors which have a multiplier effect, creating infrastructure is certainly one of those.
Right.
As you build out infrastructure, you will generate a lot of employment again in the construction space, which is really helping the bottom of the pyramid with livelihoods, with cash in their pockets. On the other hand, you are also providing a boost to local manufacturing in capital goods and various industries to support the infrastructure build out. And again, manufacturing we know has a multiplier effect with employment and and compared to perhaps just giving out a grant, it is better to put that same money into infrastructure because you will rotate it so many times that it will definitely benefit the economy more. So I'm really looking forward to something like that. The government has laid out an ambitious program. Now let's see how far that goes. Yeah. But
Yeah, I think.
overall, I think in a
Yeah.
12 to 18-month period, I think where India is, I'm optimistic we will be seeing a good, jump back.
Okay. Yeah, but you see, the infrastructure spend is what is going to work as a catalyst for the, for the steel, for the cement, for all the sectors, and that creates a demand. It also gives you money in the hands of the people there. So it is something which is right from Vajpayee's time. He's the one who started this earlier. All the quadrangles, which he built up during his time. So I think the present government is also very clear on that lines, and they are trying to speed up the spending on the infrastructure so that the other industries can follow as a matter of corollary. So with these words, thank you, and I will just sum up whatever is that what you people have advised. That first of all, uh, because of the pandemic, you have said that we should take care of the staff. The first thing, if you're working in a company or in a business or wherever you are, the take care of the staff. That is the most important thing. If he feels reassured, he feels healthy, safe, then he's going to be doing the best for you. Second is that take care of the customers. The customer is the king. You have to now reach up to the customer to see what he wants, and he should be, as you said, that it could be available to him on click of a button, and all these things, it should be simpler to him. Let him feel assured of what is he wanting. So if a customer is taken care of, his requirements are taken care of, and he's felt that somebody is taking care of him, he is going to come back to you. And it's very important the customer to come back into the market, because that's something, he has been out of the market for the last 2 months. So if he has to be brought back. And the third is that we have to use the technology to make sure to get this involved into our business and whatever activities which we are doing, so that we are able to reduce our cost, improve our efficiency, and save a lot of money, which is very badly required. So with these words, I thank not only you, but also both of you, as well as the Indian Chamber and all the other people who have been patiently listening. We are sorry that we have not been able to do justice to all the questions which are there. Quite a few questions are still there, but I'm sure there could be some problem, because time constraint and whatever. But I'm sure if those questions could be forwarded to us subsequently by Nilanjan or Ankita, we could give them a reply separately. Is that okay with both of you?
Yeah, sure. We can
Okay.
take it forward. And I would also like to thank Mr. Vivek Bhatia, Mr. Neville Dumase, and of course you, sir, for conducting the session so well. I think we had got very good information about the future scenario from all of you, and look forward to see you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Okay,
Thank you so
Vivek
much.
Thank you.
and Neville. Yeah.
See ya. Bye
Take
bye.
care of yourself and your families. Yeah.
Thank you. You too. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you.
Right. Bye bye.